Uma Thurman, Samuel Jackson, and a host of others. Interesting movie. Debbie Mazar's in this thing. Joe Manganiello, if I said his name right. Now, why did I go see this movie? Honestly, it was really because it was kind of a Pulp Fiction reunion. I mean, like a lot of people. I'm a big Pulp Fiction film fan. 1994, Quentin Tarantino's broke through the roof with this thing. Obviously, he had done another movie before then, Reservoir Dogs, but I think Pulp Fiction was probably 10 times as many people saw Pulp Fiction as did Reservoir Dogs, at least. And now we have kind of a little mini reunion of a couple of characters from that film who I don't think interacted with each other directly in Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman. In fact, I couldn't remember seeing Uma Thurman in much of anything for quite some time before this, and kind of just wondering whatever happened to Uma. Where's Uma? I mean, Uma was such a big deal in the '90s. You might remember, things like Uma meet Oprah, Oprah meet Uma from David Letterman on the Oscars one year, all types of stuff. The Kill Bill movies in 2003, Batman and Robin in 1997. She did go off and marry Ethan Hawke. Good for him. Good for her. And they had a child. Now it's a full-grown child. So I don't know if she was just kind of doing the mom thing for a while. Apparently, she actually has done a bunch of stuff. Super Pumped, Suspicion, The War with Grandpa, which I did see that one. That was Robert De Niro. So I kind of forgot about that. But I guess what I'm saying is I haven't seen Uma Thurman in something on the big screen where she kind of played, the same type of characters that I was knowing her for, and so this was nice to see. And I think she still has it. And then, if anything, this character, as the art dealer, was kind of hooked on Adderall, and she kind of felt like Uma Thurman playing like a homage to Uma Thurman. I wouldn't say a parody, but if you like Uma Thurman, if you liked her at her peak in Pulp Fiction or whatever, I think you'd like this too. She's a lot of fun. She's a very interesting actress. Blends her beauty with her comedy, I think, quite well. And Samuel L. Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson. Now, the whole premise of this movie is pretty interesting. It's about money laundering from the bad guys, the criminals, the killers of society, the underworld, laundering money through a struggling art dealer who's played by Uma. And this, premise was interesting. I mean, it kind of makes me think this is probably going on somewhere, to tell you the truth, because I mean, it doesn't seem that far fetched. Because art, I mean, I make art, as you know, I'm a wonderful artist, and but I mean, the fact is, art is very subjective, so you can see where it would be a good money laundering racket for the underworld, and so I thought that was pretty interesting. And but I think this movie kind of didn't go a few places it could have. For instance, the killer in all this madness, Reggie, who turns out to be he's the artist, but he's called the Bagman. You might have seen the previews, and the Bagman is because he basically suffocates people, with plastic bags over their heads. And that's how he's making this art, because he's basically told that he has to provide the art in order for this racket to happen. And he just starts making this very violent art with with the bags of his victims. And I just felt like, there seemed to be hints of a potential romantic situation between Reggie and Uma's Patrice, and I'm not sure why they didn't go there. I mean, maybe it was too predictable to go there, but it seemed to me like that might have spiked, the second half of the movie up a little bit if there was some type of, sexual chemistry or conflict between Patrice and Reggie, the art dealer, and the actual killer. As it stands, we didn't really go there, and I kind of felt like the movie just didn't. After like the setup, there was like a bit of a falling off period. Like I felt like the movie didn't. It had a good first half, and then it just didn't go much more into places that I didn't see coming or whatever. I think the movie could have gone further in its story, because I think we did have an interesting setup. I mean, it did feel a little bit like, Pulp Fiction meets the art world, which I think is interesting. But I just feel like the movie kind of started off with a really interesting setup, allowed the actors, especially Uma, to have fun with her character. But then we kind of just drifted into Blasville, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I thought it was still enjoyable, But I think a lot of the enjoyment for me was why I walked into the theater in the first place, was to see the Uma Samuel Jackson reunion. And once that was kind of the novelty of that wore off, I don't know if this movie really had any killer moments, so to speak, to have me remember it. So I mean, it's not a bad movie. It was enjoyable. I mean, when I went to see it, there was a grand total of two people in the theater, myself and one other gentleman. I could hear him chuckling to himself. I was chuckling to myself. There was nothing wrong with the film. I just felt like it could have been more of what it was. It could have been a little bit more edgy or something. It just felt like a 90s or early 2000s kind of hipster action, movie that was just a little bit 2023, just a little castrated. You know what I mean? Like it's a harmless film in some regard. I mean, we start off the movie with a violent murder scene, and so then you think we're in the gritty world, but it kind of went soft, I guess. I think part of that was one of the main characters, the Reggie, the killer character. As he becomes more loved for his art, his character gets to be less of a killer, obviously, because now he's seen a different way. And then you have your typically cliche stuff of okay, now the killer is going to try to get away from his mafia friends or from his scumbag friends, and what does he have to do to get out? Blah blah blah. You'll never leave this life. You're in it forever. So I mean, a lot of the cliche stuff comes in, which is okay sometimes, but I just didn't feel like some of the plot elements or storyline elements. It's kind of like I felt like we had a first strong half of the movie and then like kind of a tapering off. Like it just didn't go further or go different or whatever. It just kind of lost me about halfway through. So, I mean, I will admit thoroughly that this was the second movie I saw back to back. I had seen On Fire before this one, which is actually a very short movie. It's 76 minutes long. So, if you go over to Mike's Instant Movie Reviews, you see my review of that one. You can see that this was the second movie the day I saw. Maybe that had something to do with it. But overall, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, I think it's a movie that you could see, but you could live without seeing it. If you're a big Uma and Samuel fan and you want to see them together, this is quite serviceable. But I can't give it a glowing review, and I can't give it a shitty review either. It's kind of just, as the kids say, mid. So that's it. If you want to see my films, you say, well, gee whiz, Mike, what the fuck makes you such a priority? You can go over to One Man and a Camera Films and see my films or not. But that's it. So your buddy Mike Messier. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Subscribe or don't.